It's been a long year, but Star Trek Discovery is finally back, which means we're back recapping the second season premiere, an episode called Brother. The Star Trek Discovery After Show starts now.
You're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Drop it!
Oh, yes, that's right. The episode is called Brother, and indeed, Brother is going to work it out. Welcome to the Star Trek Discovery After Show. I am Christian Bladt, very happy to be back talking Star Trek, joined by first time, well, you have a blue shirt on, but you're definitely a red shirt, Flobo Boyce.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Hopefully,
so
last longer than
let's
that.
just hope we don't have any away missions next week.
Right.
And of course, the one and only Frank Moran on the other side of the desk. A lot to talk about, and we will have some Star Trek related news after we talk about this episode. And Frank, there's kind of a lot. There's a lot going on. You know, I think that CBS All Access is like, we're kind of onto something with this Star Trek thing. Let's see what else we can get people to watch.
Very true. This is a big franchise, and it feels like now they're really trying to dive deep into it and see what they can get.
Well, if you can keep people subscribed, Fobo, because as we've talked about it, it's, you know, we talked a lot about it in the first season, that, you know, if we couldn't watch it for free here, I don't know that I would have it for the whole season. I think I would get my free week at the end of the season and just binge it.
Oh, yeah,
you know?
for sure.
But I think if they're able to maintain a bunch of different Star Trek series, I think people will be more inclined to, like, you know what, it's, what is it, $5.99 if you get the version we have with the commercials.
Right.
And Netflix is like $16.99. So all of a sudden, it looks a little bit more attractive, right?
And let's not forget that they have Stakeout with Tim Meadows. So come on, guys.
Tim Meadows equals ratings, that's for sure. That's why I signed up.
Let's not forget.
Hey, I love the ladies' man, Tim Meadows. In fact, we'll have some Courvoisier next week on the show. But let's dive right in to Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 1. Overall thoughts, Flobo, you first.
You know what? I'm glad Burnham is back.
Yeah.
After the first season, it was very impressive how it came out of nowhere because it was a little bit of a blank slate, but it had its issues. Overall, with Season 1, I'm kind of I was tired of saying "Guvmach" every week. This season, though, a lot of things are laid down, and I feel that there's some good potential here. So.
Yeah, what did you think, just sort of in general, Frank?
I'm kind of optimistic about this season. It was nice. We've talked about our issues about the first season, for better, for worse, things we liked, things we didn't. But what I kind of liked, at least in this episode, and I hope it is an indication where the season's going to be going, is that I felt, at least in brief, we got some more character moments with other members of the crew than just centering so much around Burnham.
Yeah, I agree. We got some more. I mean, obviously, Tilly will always have her comedic moments, you know, the say less things, you know, some of the admonitions that she was given in the episode. But I think it's encouraging because you definitely felt like the rest of the crew was more involved. And I was, first of all, just excited that the show was back because ultimately, despite the fact that we had issues with the first season, I really did enjoy it. And I was just glad. I mean, it wasn't even last year. It was the year before, right? It was 2016 was that series. And that was, I mean, that was definitely my favorite series of that year. You know, the joke that I used on this show is that I would say is that it's the best show on television, except it's not on television. And most people, at least in the United States, don't really know it's there or know how to find it. Right. The rest of the world, you can watch it on Netflix. So it's very
why
easy.
I discovered the show. I was traveling abroad, and I was like, what is this? And I binged it like in 2 days.
Yeah.
I was on a vacation, mind you. I was like, the sites, screw it. You know,
and, I mean, from a business standpoint, that's kind of the best thing for the show is that they get so much money from Netflix. I mean, they're, you know, consistently throughout season 1 and definitely in tonight's premiere, there were sequences that were definitely not television level sci-fi special effects. You know, I think the whole descent to the meteor, you know, like all of that was just like, you don't usually see that level on TV, you know? So, and I was always encouraged that throughout the first season, you know, look, most shows have a really flashy pilot because they spend, you know, like $10 million and then they spend like $2 million on the rest. So I was very encouraged that that seems to be top notch. And let's start off with someone who we actually get to meet in this episode, even though we've known for months that he was on. Frank, what did you think of Anson Mount as Captain Pike?
I enjoyed Jason Isaacs as Captain Lorca. I thought he was a cool change of pace for a Star Trek captain. I liked what he was doing.
Except for the whole being a traitor thing. But but up until that point.
Up until that point.
Sure.
But I enjoyed Anson Mount in this one. It was a different approach than what Jason Isaacs was doing, but it was still really cool.
And we don't have a lot of examples of Jeffrey Hunter as Captain Pike, but what we have in the cage is a little bit more buttoned down and a lot less, casual. It's like instead of saying engage or anything, he's like, hit it. It's like, okay, so he's like that kind of guy. Flobo, what did you think of Anson Mount?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I loved Lorca. I thought he was one of the more compelling aspects of last season, but I like the fact that Commander Pike has that little balance of I can be that guy, I can pull the rank if need be, but I am more laid back in that chair, and whatever your name is, don't give me your title, just let me know what you do, and I thought that was pretty nice.
Yeah, and he's like, yep, there's my file. Why don't you all read it? Look, I got an F in physics or some kind of engineering. I'm not smart enough. I get an F in describing smart classes.
But we do have the one lieutenant commander, our robotic-looking lieutenant commander, who's still on the bridge, still gave her title. Like, come on. The captain just said don't do it. And you had to just already...
Those brown-nosing robots.
Yeah, those robots just can't,
Couldn't do it.
So I thought it was great to see him, and I had no expectation that we were going to see Spock in this episode. I figured they're going to build to that. And, when they did the slow, energization, for lack of a better word, of the transporter beam, and you're like, who's that? He's got a blue shirt on. Not Spock. And then it's like, don't be too invested in not Spock, spoiler alert.
And it was nice how the way they finished that shot where you just see the close-up of the ear.
Yeah.
To give you that indication, like, no.
Not him.
Nope.
Yeah.
I was holding out hope for the last shot of the show being Spock, but that wasn't.
I thought they could have done that, but I think that, when Sarek said that, well, we haven't seen him in a long time, and, and even Pike just doesn't know when he might come back. So I think it's setting it up for a nice reveal when Spock does come back, because look, we know he's coming back. We know he's been cast. There was that actor, Ethan Peck, did voiceover for his ship's log. So it's just inevitable. But it was. I think it was definitely fun, and that's pretty much what I look for from Star Trek. I want it to be fun, and this was very flashy, and it moved pretty consistently all the way throughout.
When Pike does show up, of course, he's wearing the original series, at least colors.
Yes.
Kind of modern updating of the original series uniform.
Yeah, because there's zippers.
Yeah, that's true. Seeing those contrasted to Discovery, which ones do you guys like better?
It's a great question. Go ahead.
I'll be honest with you. While I was watching that exchange, I was looking for eBay cosplay Discovery uniform. So I guess that's my answer right there.
Yeah, I was a little chilly today, so I didn't wear it. But I actually have a T-shirt that I wore last season of the Discovery uniform. I do like them, but I really like seeing the traditional, original uniforms. And Frank, something that we were talking about when we first saw photos, it's like, well, he doesn't have the turtleneck sort of uniform from the cage.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, they're going to have to explain that now, or maybe they won't,
What about yourself?
What I liked in this was seeing just that splash of color.
Yeah.
That bright primary color, and even the sequence where they go down to the asteroid and they're getting in their environmental suits.
They're all color coded.
Yes,
it was so Power Ranger.
Yeah.
Loved it.
But it was just like to see those bright primary colors back in a Star Trek series was really nice to see.
Yeah, because I think even in the later seasons of Voyager and DS9, it was again sort of like a turtleneck sort of thing where there was just a slight bit of color, and I didn't love that the Next Generation didn't have the color coded sort of designations. So it is nice to see, and it also makes sense. But then at the end of the episode, we've got Pike in the blue jumpsuit, and we're like, why is he doing that?
Yeah, why are you stepping down?
But I guess he he's just like, that's the kind of guy I am. It's like, look, when I gotta step up and be the captain of this ship, I'm going to. But you know what? Saru was acting captain. I was only given this one mission, and I think that I don't think it tells you a lot about him. I think that as much as we all liked Lorca, this is a guy who's not a traitor. you know. It's it'll be interesting to kind of see. And I like that, you know, they give a perfectly credible reason for why he sticks around on Discovery. It's like, oh yeah, the Enterprise is all messed up, so it's going to be a while.
So no love for the Enterprise uniforms?
I like them. I liked seeing them, but I'm okay that because this show they have the blue jumpsuits. I think for consistency, I would have liked him to keep the yellow one. But then I think what I was going to say is that it calls too much attention. He's like, oh, I'm like above everyone.
I mean, the Captain Archer Enterprise, like that uniform.
That uniform is not that dissimilar from this uniform.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so it stands to reason that this would be the next evolution in the uniforms. So let's talk a little bit more about, you know, we didn't see Spock, but we did see him in a flashback, and even that they do a big reveal, and I'm like, well, it's Kid Spock. You know, it's like, we know who it is.
Yeah, chubby cheek Spock. That's what you got.
Yeah, the Cabbage Patch Spock, basically. Flobo, what did you think about that storyline?
Yeah, I think it would be naive to think they were going to be holding hands and smiling and doing the whole brother-sister exchange. I knew that Spock would have been cold. It seemed a bit dramatic. Which is kind of weird to say about a Vulcan family, but I understand that Michael Burnham had to go through that point of feeling rejected, that she wasn't part of that family. It was a slow burn for her to be a part of that, but I did think that Spock didn't give her a chance. That was kind of weird how quick he was able just to shut her out with that dramatic.
Right. But the takeaway is that Spock ultimately does give her a chance, and then she's not interested in taking it by that point. So I think it'll be interesting kind of navigating that, and in true Vulcan fashion, Sarek's like, all right, I sense there's some emotion here. You talk to me about it when you're ready, but I gotta go.
Right.
What did you think about seeing Amanda with young Burnham and also seeing young Spock?
Yeah, I mean, just as a Star Trek fan, I guess like, oh, hey, it's cool, we're going to see young Spock. I feel like the show wants me to be really invested in why there's a fracture between Burnham and Spock and the whatever kind of reconciliation they'll have over the course of this season. I'm just not there yet to be really that heavily invested as the show wants me to be.
Yes.
And I feel like maybe that's, again, going to what we talked about a lot last season. It's just our investment as longtime Trek fans, where we're basically retconning a lot of Spock's origin as we know it. So I feel like, where does this all fit in? I'm not really. It seems weird to me for them to be changing all this. I don't know what this does to Spock to make him a better character, but I guess that's what I got to give the season a shot to see if it actually pays off in the long run. Right now, I'm cautious. I'm cautious about it.
Well, I agree, and I think that throughout the first season we were always cautiously optimistic, and I think in general I certainly enjoyed it, and I'm ready for them to basically tell this new chapter here. So we will talk a little bit more about this episode. But first, I think, Frank, you have a very important message.
Yeah, that's right. To all the ships at sea.
Yes.
Right there, yes. Hey, folks, here at AfterBuzz, we don't do just Star Trek and break down the latest episode of Discovery. There are so many after shows that we do. In fact, we do after shows for nearly all your favorite TV shows. From reality TV, drama, sci-fi, and more. Nobody works harder to serve you, the television fans. And believe me, we've looked. Christian has looked high and low to try to find anybody, and it has not found any other network. No. But right now, folks, we need your help. So we're asking that you please subscribe to one or more of our YouTube channels. And by doing that, YouTube's going to suggest that content that's tailor-made for you. So, and if you're worried about those pesky notifications, don't worry, because they're optional. So let us know that you subscribed in the comments, and we'll give you a nice big Star Trek salute here on Discovery the next time we do this show here. But in the meantime, thanks for being the best fans around and for making us the ESPN of TV Talk.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome, Christian.
So the website, denofgeek.com, I give them credit because they usually do a great job kind of on everything, like on the Marvel Netflix shows and on this series. They kind of go through and call attention to some of the Easter eggs. And we'll talk a little bit more about some of the big picture stuff. But, I think Star Trek fans are, if nothing, get excited about little details.
Absolutely.
The fact
we live in that minutia.
The fact that the Enterprise has a full crew complement of 203 instead of the 400 of the original series. So because that is actually, it was basically 200 in the cage, and which of course was repurposed as a menagerie. So that's always great. And of course we started off with Burnham giving us a little space, the final frontier. Now, it's not the whole thing that we're used to hearing, but I thought that was excuse me, that was a nice way to kind of, be like, all right, we're back, and this is what Star Trek does. Did you enjoy hearing that, Flobo? The sort of the throwback to the old shows?
For sure. The space, the final frontier, definitely has the hairs on the back of my neck. Awesome, Mr. Saru. That was pretty awesome. And the fact that you used new updated imagery to give that kind of like that mix of science and fantasy, exploration and discovering inside was very, very great in setting the tone for season 2. I know a lot of people had a lot of questions of how light or how the show was going to change. And I thought that was the best way of doing it. Just saying, hey, look, we understand. We've come this far. We're going to do some light tweaks, but here's some images for you.
Yeah, and Frank, your thoughts on hearing that at the start of the episode?
Yeah, I mean, always cool, and I feel like as it went on and Burnham started turning it into the story that she heard as a child,
yeah,
I feel like it is definitely going to have parallels to whatever the journey we're going on through the course of the season. I feel like you don't plant that at the beginning of the first episode of your season and not have it influence or at least relate to some of the things you're going to be discovering.
Sure, and compared to the first season where we just started off in that desert scene with the Georgiou and Burnham, this seemed a little bit more like a lore a bit.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. Yeah, absolutely. So we get, to the point that this wasn't really just the Michael Burnham show. We do get Saru talking about a strained relationship with his sister. So it's like, oh, you got that? Yeah, I got that too.
Yeah.
So maybe we're not that different. So obviously we're being set up for something that'll be interesting. It'll be great to, see some of his family. At least I think so. Mm-hmm. And so I think that'll be interesting. I did like that we saw a Geordie LaForge style visor in engineering, no less. Yep. So just the little things that were like, okay, yeah, you did that for us. Thank you. Didn't have to do it, right, but thank you for doing that. Let's see. Captain Pike gives a shout out to back in Mojave, which is something that we do learn in the cage. So it tracks. They didn't just make it up just because it sounded interesting. I did like that we got the uniforms, and I think that there were a lot of the little tweaks, and I did like that we actually saw a turbolift, which I think was always just so expensive. It was just the stagehands closing the door and then opening the door on another set. That was really what we got.
The realization of the turbolift was interesting, and I almost felt like it was like as it was happening, like, oh wait, that's supposed to be the turbolift, and then the shot was done. But I don't know if that's exactly what I had imagined it to be, but it was interesting to see.
And then, of course, these little attentions to detail. I can't pretend that I saw this, but Denim Geek did. If you look closely at Captain Pike's file, it does indeed mention Captain Robert April, who it was established in Star Trek The Animated Series, was the captain of the Enterprise before Pike. So, it's those little things that if it wasn't on there, somebody would say something. They'd be like, that's not true.
Right.
But then, of course, it's like, but is the animated series really canon? But anyway, let's get back to our cast of characters. Interesting sort of place that Lieutenant Stamets is at. That he's going to go teach, and it makes sense. It was a fairly traumatic turn of events that he had in the first season. I think Tilly, for selfish reasons, wants him to stay around, but also feels like you're really turning your back on this sort of amazing aspect of science that you're the only one who can experience. What did you think about that storyline, Frank? Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like this is just false jeopardy for like, oh wait, you got to worry about Stamets is going to be leaving the ship. Cut to, he's not really leaving the ship. So.
Because we saw how excited he was. It's like, you didn't invite me, and it's just like, you're invited, but it's like, pretty sure you said you were going to go be a teacher.
So you're sticking around. But I also like back even in Discovery time, they had like those personal holofields.
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, all right. Again, technology that we did not see in the original series, but just clap it on and then you get to see your thing.
It is always cool, and I mean, it's certainly something that we talked a lot about in the first season. Is like, well, just because the original series is 50 plus years ago, and there were sort of limitations for what the technology could look like, they shouldn't do that to themselves now.
Yeah.
And I think that's why they're really going to take their time before they show us the Enterprise. Flobo, what did you think about where Paul Stamets finds himself?
We see a little bit of a slight reset. I mean, last season he was pushing the Discovery of the jump drive, and having wanted to be able to see that, make that work, and being mitigated by his. Was it officially a husband, lover?
I think that they characterize him as his husband.
Yeah.
I think he said it was his husband.
They were husband. But now we're seeing it more of he's being pulled, right? He's been through this drama, and he's understanding the opera now, understanding that he has a life beyond the ship, and being pulled back into it. So I thought it was a good way of resetting the motivations of Stamets there.
Yeah, and I think, I think we'll probably have more of those moments like Frank alluded to, that he's like, wait, there's some really fun sciencey stuff happening. I want in. Don't leave me out.
I'm just about to step onto the shuttlecraft. No.
Well, they keep pulling back in.
Yeah, but they need me.
Yeah.
But I would think of all the characters, I think his has probably been the character that has changed the most.
Yeah.
From you mentioned him at the beginning of season 1, where he was just more snarky.
And we also didn't bother to learn his name. We would just call him Lieutenant Guy from Rent.
Yep.
Yeah. So, but then he became a much bigger part of the show, and I'm like, oh, I like him. I think he was a great part of the show, and I would say that I would miss him on the show, except I know he's gonna still be on. Yeah. So I'm not that worried about it. So we get to see Burnham in a lot of different situations. We see her sort of basically single-handedly saving missions, and even she, though, can't manage to stop herself from getting her leg impaled on something. So it's nice to see that in the true spirit of Star Trek, of course, Pike comes back to get her.
Of course, leave no one behind.
Right, exactly. Right. And I do like, what I do like about them telling stories in sort of this older generation, no pun intended, in this earlier time, is that the captains, of course, go on away missions. Logically, it makes sense in Next Generation that it's like, yeah, Riker's going to go and Picard's going to just sit there and drink tea. But I think that, I don't know, I find it much more exciting, that these are, our Captain Pikes, our Jim Kirks. These are our guys who just go out there and, they probably feel like they wouldn't be a captain if they weren't going down with the away teams. And I think that Pike really was able to shine a number of times in the course of this episode. And so we didn't get any other characters from the cage, Frank. We didn't get number 1, who I believe we will see at some point.
Excited about that.
Of course, we did not see Spock. Are we going to get Dr. Boyce? I don't know.
Yeah, who knows?
We'll see.
It would be great to see Dr. Boyce, because, come on.
But I think that the timeline is that this is a couple of years. This is maybe 2 or 3 years before the cage. So there could definitely be some changes to the crew. But very interested in who we're going to get to see.
I did like the nice zig and zag there they did with the red shirt. Moment there.
That the red shirt did not die, and the blue shirt did, because he was being very cocky. Right. And just like, I'll tell you what I told my roommate. I'm real.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, great. So it was inevitable. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that, look, it's nice that it's not always the red shirt, which that's bad news for Flobo, because you have a blue shirt.
I know, right? I picked the wrong color this week.
So I think next week we're going to go on an away mission, and we'll see what happens.
I got the red shirts in case.
I did like one of the shout outs that I liked was Cadet Tilly referenced Baby Tribble in the Kill Zone. One of my favorite episodes of Star Trek, if not my favorite, is of course The Trouble with Tribbles and the Deep Space Nine episode, More Troubles, More Tribbles. So I like, any of this stuff. And I think out of any property, Star Trek more than anything else, you really need to include a lot of these references in, because they just make us giddy. We get very excited. Some of the sound effects for operating the transporter beam, just little things like that. Go ahead, Frank.
One character that I was actually intrigued about, and I'm hoping that this was kind of like her backdoor introduction to the crew, was it was Commander Reno, the engineer slash
played by Tig Notaro, the comedian.
Yeah.
I don't know if I really didn't read it in the casting notes to see if this is just a one-off or she's actually going to be
Well, I feel like she wouldn't be on the ship right now if we don't see her again, and I think it'll be interesting because it'll definitely be a different dynamic. Yeah. And, look, when you spend 10 months in isolation, keeping people alive by yourself with your robot friends, she's probably going to be a little off, So I think that'll be worth watching and seeing. Yeah, so I liked that we had those characters, and we still have 2 characters from Enterprise, the red shirt, who they didn't really spend a lot of time letting us know anything about her, except for the fact that she lived.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, good for her, by the way.
Yeah.
And she was envious of the, at least the Discovery initially, when she got on board.
Which I think is a nice touch because, of course, I forget the helmsman's name with the robotic eye. She sees the Enterprise, and she's like, wow, it's beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's like, Discovery's not so bad either. Now, did you guys watch the coming attractions for the season? Yeah. So I think we're gonna see a lot of interesting things. We're gonna see some familiar faces, including Mr. Spock,
the man,
and Captain Giorgio, who we'll talk about in a moment. And I think it'll be good to kind of see. It looks very exciting where they're going. And I don't know how many episodes we have. Do we have 17 again? I should have done that research, but we'll have that for you next week.
Yeah, sure. But I did like at least what Anson Mount says as Captain Pike at the end. It's raise a little hell, have some fun along the way, which I feel like kind of was like their mission statement for this season.
Yeah.
So hopefully it will be. Last episode could be kind of like dark or just kind of grim a lot of the time. So if we get a little bit more like fun episodes along there, it would be nice.
I was glad that we got the recap for season 1 because I was like, oh yeah, that was how the season ended. Like, of course I remembered that the Enterprise showed up, but I kind of forgot a lot of what led up to that. So it was like, oh yeah, and I think it's going to be a little bit more fun, like the way that the original series was. So was there anything that you saw in the coming attractions, Flobo, that you were particularly excited about?
Yeah, I know after last season, whatever you may feel about the romance angle for Michael Burnham and how that trajectory, it looked like she has a prospect this season as well, as maybe not so much of
hopefully it's not a secret Klingon.
Yeah, exactly. Hope it's not a secret Klingon. And definitely with the whole fun dynamic, we're seeing a lot more humor too in the episode, a lot more Marvel Cinematic Universe kind of humor of like, side gags and characters are walking by and stuff. I was wanting to see how those things can work because I always felt like any relationship Burnham had in season 1 was set up for tragedy. Like was set up to have to be this giant blow up or explosion. Hopefully she might get some wins. So
yeah, and I did like her interaction with Tilly where Tilly's like, tell me you're coming back. Oh yeah, I know you can't say. Just lie to me. She's like, yeah, I'm coming back.
Yeah.
And I kind of like the way that their relationship has grown over time. I think they're not roommates anymore. That's my impression.
Right. She has a desk
but I guess because she's not the pariah that she was at the early part of season 1. She actually has rank now. So
which I like so much more because there was so much angst that she was carrying along with her season 1 that it is nice just to have her just back in the ranks of Starfleet. Let's just drop that and just have a good time.
Yeah, and I think that's the key is just have a good time.
But holographic candles.
It's true. Yeah. But I did see Klingons in that coming up, and which we're like, oh, well, more Klingons, great. And I did not see any Harvey Mudd, but I feel like we're gonna get it.
I'm fairly sure that we're gonna get him this season, and I like the character. I thought Rainn Wilson did a fine job, so I'm okay with seeing him. Let's put it that way. I'd really like to see Cyrano Jones though, but I don't know if we're gonna get him. In the chat, Rainbow Wyvern says, Lorca reflected the dark themes of the first season, and Pike seems to be trying to represent the lighthearted, serious themes that season 2 is trying for. Right, sort of the balance between, look, it's serious, this is a military operation, we are on a mission, but let's try and have fun, and let's not... and I kind of liked the, we need to get a better ready room. Does nobody sit in here? And she's like, no, nobody sits in here. So I think it lets us know that he's a little bit more laid back. Well, let us know what you think of the season 2 premiere. And, we sort of just went through the broad strokes. I think there was a lot of great stuff. Is there anything that stands out for either of you that we haven't touched on yet that was a moment that sort of, either you thought was really cool or it kind of resounded with you in some way?
Yeah, that Chinese fortune. That was
fun. That's a great point. Yeah, that was a nice touch.
Oh, yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I felt great about it.
That's a great point. I didn't even remember that. Yeah. Anything, Frank?
For me, it was just, again, it felt like very Chekhov and Sulu right there for DeMars on the the navigator.
Yeah.
For as they're trying to plot out rescuing Captain Pike and working with Burnham, just their looks and reactions to each other. It's like nice to have them have some more character beats. I think more personality from them than we ever saw in season 1.
Yeah, and I liked sort of Burnham's interaction is like, Discovery will get you. We're going to get him, right? And they're like, yeah, we're definitely going to get him. And yeah, that's a lot. That's more personality than we got from either of them in the course of the first season. So very excited. And, of course, we will be back Thursdays at 10 Pacific. And, of course, if you're on the East Coast, just subscribe to the podcast version or on the YouTube channel, as Frank told you all the great ways to do that. Now let's talk a little bit about the Star Trek news. Frank, of all the different ideas and new series and spinoffs that we're getting, which one, and we'll go through all of them, but which one are you most excited about? And we'll start with that one.
I'm most excited. I would be hard-pressed to find anybody that wouldn't be most excited about the Captain Picard series.
I definitely agree.
Just because I think it's cool that we're going to see something that's set ahead of everything that we've seen so far in the Star Trek universe. I mean, it's going to be past
Nemesis, right?
Yeah,
Because
even past the destruction of Romulus in the JJ Abrams film.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, so we're going to finally get, I mean, it'll have been, 15 years or maybe even a little more since we've gone forward from that timeline.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that Frank and I were very critical about, just what Discovery was. It was like, all right, so we have this time period before the original Enterprise, but why? I thought it was good, but, I'm inclined to really, see the news stories. And it'll be interesting what that show is. It's sort of very vague for what it's going to be.
Yeah, it's because I know there's been some stuff online that has been speculating that it's going to have to deal with the destruction of Romulus and, of course, Picard's bonding with both Sarek and Spock and doing the mind melds with them, and how he's going to be carrying some of that burden from his residual mind meld with Spock about his frustrations and failures with Romulus, and see where that goes. So who knows where that takes it, but it could be an interesting starting off.
Yeah, I think it'll be, if that is what we get, that'll be a fascinating starting off point, because obviously Picard has met Spock in was that episode called Reunion or Reunification? There was an episode of the Next Generation.
Reunification.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Anyway, Flobo, is that the one that you feel like is going to be the most exciting, or is it one of the others?
The most exciting? Maybe. But the one I'm most intrigued in is the Philippa Georgiou spinoff.
Yeah.
Only because I'm not sure where exactly they were going to go with that. So we have that alternate dimension, and we have the classic characters there, but I'm really concerned about the tone of how they're going to go and how they're going to interact with that, and how often will they cross over with Discovery, if at all.
Yeah.
So that, to me, I'm going to wait and see there.
Yeah, and by the way, what a great gig for Michelle Yeoh that she gets killed in the second episode, but you're still around and you're going to get your own series too.
Yeah.
It's like, great, you got killed, but don't worry, you're fine.
It's like a Flash, right?
But I think that's the one that's the biggest question mark. I'm like, well, I don't know what that's going to be. And Frank and I were talking, and Flobo a little bit too when you came in here. We were talking about, it'll be interesting to see Section 31 Black Ops style series, because we've never had anything like that. So it'll be interesting to see that. I think if you're going to tell that story and you're going to tell it in the Discovery timeline, the sort of mirror universe Georgiou is the person that makes the most sense to to sort of headline that show.
Yeah, she's got already a very dubious kind of moral barometer. So to put her in this kind of situation doing some Black Ops stuff could be interesting to see what her character goes. And we've seen a little bit of it in Deep Space Nine. There's been a lot of stuff in the novels about Section 31, but we've never seen...
a little bit on Enterprise, too.
Yeah.
So, but, I think it's largely untold stories.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll definitely be interesting. And let's see, what else do we have? We have the Lower Decks animated series.
Yeah, by one of the producers of Rick and Morty.
And sort of a Lower Decks series has kind of been kicked around a few times, basically ever since the Next Generation episode, I believe, of the same name. And it's kind of a nice take on one of these starships, just to see the below deck, the the not bridge crew, So I think that'll be interesting.
Yeah, and there's even talk. Alex Kurtzman said that he also wants to do another second animated series that'll be different in tone from Lower Decks, but no real big details have been released so far about it.
Yeah, well, I think animation is the sort of the leaps and bounds that have been made with animation since Star Trek: The Animated Series. What that show can look like would be really impressive, and it really frees you up. Look, we talked a lot about the effects budget for Discovery. But if you're animated, you can literally do anything. You know, you can have anything happen that you want to. You don't have to worry about building any sets. You don't have to worry about CGI. It's just like, well, can you draw that? Great, all done.
But how close do you want it to be to, whether it be the original series? What if it was something kind of akin to the style of Archer?
Yeah, that's a great point. You know, I think personally I would prefer something that's more like the original series. What do you think, Flobo?
I was on board with you till I heard the Archer.
Yeah, right.
I was like, how would that even work? Yeah, for sure.
Or I mean, because if it's one of the producers of Rick and Morty, it has definitely more stylized. Would you want to see a more stylized take on the on this universe and these characters? Or would you want it to, whatever you see, it kind of conform to our already kind of existing ideas of what this universe looks like?
Whatever angle they go with, we have to see a less romanticized version or a more realistic thing. Like, not as lame as, like, filing taxes in space, but definitely, you know, like, we want to see what things that the other series aren't touching upon. So.
Well, it's tax day, everybody, so let's get out your 1099-1701s.
Right.
And we'll see where that goes.
Is this deductible? I don't even know.
Yeah, it's like, well, we could be to an accountant in 4 months. So let's see if we can get to the H&R Block Planet.
Theme song.
Yeah, right. Hey, that's some great cross promotion there. So that's everything that's been announced. And then the other announcement is something that's not happening, which is, for a lack of a better way to characterize it, is Star Trek IV, the JJ Abramsverse fourth film. It just seems like it's going to be shelved. And I think when Chris Pine really was holding out for more money, I think that's when I started to think, like, I don't know that's going to happen. Because I liked Star Trek Beyond, but I know it didn't make the kind of money that they wanted it to. And I think that they were just like, they kind of looked at it and they're like, yeah, I don't think people need this. Which is too bad, because I would have liked to have seen, I really do like the casting of those actors as the characters that we're familiar with. I would like to see at least one more adventure of them, but it looks like we're not going to. Frank, your thoughts on the announcement that Star Trek 4 is not going to happen?
I'm disappointed, because I certainly agree with you. It's from a studio's perspective, I can understand. It's like, cost benefit analysis. It's not going to be worth our time and money to get a movie that might bring in lower numbers, but you also think, well, hey, if you're bringing in Chris Hemsworth, that could draw some extra attention. Yeah. And the idea of being able to kind of bookend and close out what would be the Abrams universe for this would be cool. And then I feel like that would be a great closing point. And then whatever the next one would be could be a completely clean slate. You could recast all the parts if you wanted to.
Yeah.
Do it in a different time period or whatever. But I feel like it'd be nice to be able to just close out that story.
Sure.
Yeah. What do you think, Flobo?
I'm kind of in the same boat. I mean, I like the series, and it had its moments, but I feel like it never quite connected with the mass audience or even the hardcore fans. I think the people who were just moviegoers and dug it. Another one would have been great, but what we have right now, I think they're proud of what they did.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when the hardcore Trek fan was very dissatisfied with Into Darkness, they were in pretty bad shape, and Beyond had to be, amazing. They had to really hit it out of the park, and I do think it was a good film, but I don't think that they accomplished what they set out to do. So I'm disappointed. But we just talked about 3 new Star Trek series that we know of now, but I think there's going to be more. Let's put it that way.
I would feel like if Beyond had been the second film, we had never had Into Darkness.
Yeah.
I would think this franchise would be in better shape than it is right now, film-wise.
Yes, agreed. I definitely agree with you on that. And I think if we hadn't had Into Darkness, I think we all would have been better off.
Did you guys actively dislike that movie, Into Darkness? Or was it kind of
I watched it a couple times just to make sure, and I didn't hate it, but I just didn't. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch is a great actor, but I did not love the casting of him as Khan. Part of it is, of course, the ethnicity, but the other part of it is just he didn't feel like Khan.
Okay.
I think if you'd had a white British guy who, but he definitely feels like Khan, it would have felt better. But I never, at any point, was I like, oh, this guy is Khan. You didn't feel like he was the Space Seed Khan. He wasn't the Wrath of Khan. So I didn't hate it, but I was definitely disappointed, because I thought the potential for that movie was very high. And if you're going to tell a Khan story, you got to do it better than Wrath of Khan, and you did not.
That's
you
fair.
didn't come
That's
close.
very fair.
And they played too coy with the, oh, nope, this is definitely not Khan.
Yeah.
to, hey, it is Khan.
It is Khan, yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know, exactly.
exactly.
Yeah, because I remember when I saw it the first time, I'm like, well, of course he's Khan.
Right.
You know, it's like, it's not really a reveal. What did you think, Flobo? Did you like that movie? Or?
I liked it. I guess the problem I had, and I saw it in theaters once, so I haven't had a repeat viewing. My thing was his motivations were pretty much understandable. Like, you would do a lot for your family. I guess he's,
that's true.
I guess, okay. He's the bad guy, right.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, the climax when it was over the city, I was like, okay, that's great, but I didn't really quite feel the stakes were there because I wasn't willing to see this guy be vanquished. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, definitely. Well, let us know what you think about all of that, and of course, your impressions of Star Trek Discovery Season 2, Episode 1. As I said earlier, we will be back next Thursday at 10 Pacific, and I believe the episodes are posted at 8:30 Eastern, 5:30 Pacific, which is, it's an odd time that it's on the half hour.
Yeah.
I didn't look for it at 5 o'clock, but that in my mind, that's when it was going to be available. Well, whatever. But it works out for us. At least they don't do that thing that Netflix does where, you know, a show premieres at midnight East Coast time and then it doesn't come out again, you know, it doesn't come out for the West Coast until midnight because, I guess we'd still be able to do the show at 10 o'clock, but it would be a little bit more of a tight squeeze. Anyway, this is, it's great to be back. It's great to talk Star Trek and great to be joined by both of you gentlemen. Flobo, where do people find you?
Yeah, sure. I'm available on Twitter at Flobo Boyce and online at flopito.com.
Flopito.com.
Yeah.
Happy Go Jito.
That's right.
Frank Moran, where do people find you?
You find me on Twitter and Instagram at HappyGoJackie.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at ChristianDMZ. And one of the shows that I do here at AfterBuzz is Marvel TV Weekly Sundays, also at 10 o'clock. Anyway, that's it for this week. We will see you again next week, but until then, live long and prosper.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.